Hi and welcome. I'm Steve Martirano and this is the Behavioral Corner. You're invited to hang with us as we discuss the ways we live today, the choices we make, the things we do, and how they affect our health and well-being. So you're on the corner, the Behavioral Corner. Please hang around a while. Hi, everybody. Welcome again to the corner. Here we are now, edging our way towards fall, which is terrific. I'm Steve Martirano, host and guide, and all-around hanging on the corner kind of guy. If you're not familiar with the program, we talk about behavioral health. It's a very big topic. I like to say it covers everything. That's what this podcast is about. It's about everything that affects us emotionally, intellectually, and physically. The decisions we make constitute our well-being, really, at the end of the day. It's all sponsored by our underwriters, Retreat Behavioral Health, about which more a little bit later on. September is National Recovery Month. We've used that as a jump off to sort of expand the notion of recovery to include mental health issues and physical issues beyond substance abuse. And to that end, we thought we'd take a look at some of the paths less traveled, as it were. Over the couple of weeks, you've been hearing from acupuncturists and not spiritualists, aromatherapies. We did some crystal stuff, which was very interesting. We're going to swing it back to a somewhat more mainstream arena, and that is meditation and mindfulness today. But first, we want to introduce you to our guests, because we're lucky again to have a terrific fellow drop by the Behavioral Corner to spend some time with us. Dr. Donald McCown is Associate Professor of Health, as well as the Director of the Center for Contemplative Studies at Westchester University in Pennsylvania. We thank Professor or Doctor, what do you prefer? Or Don?
Call me Don.
Okay. Don McCown, thanks for joining us on the Behavioral Corner. I get that title right, Director of Center for Contemplative Studies?
Yes.
Tell me about Contemplative Studies.
So when I first arrived at Westchester 11 years ago, in fact, I was coming from Thomas Jefferson University and from the mindfulness-based stress reduction program there. And I wanted to have a platform to be able to do mindfulness courses and also to expand that idea and bring in other elements of the contemplative traditions. So here's how I explain it to my students. Okay, you're in a university. Where did universities come from? They came from monasteries. What did people do there? They were quiet and they read and they thought. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Wouldn't it be interesting to connect ourselves to the practices that have been handed down through the millennia, both in, really from traditions around the world? So we wanted to be able to connect to, how is this going to help me as a student? How is, say, mindfulness going to help me be a better learner? How can my moving meditations, say walking meditation or yoga or qigong, how can that contribute to my overall education and my capacity to be in the world and to make a difference?
Yeah, it's really interesting when you think about it. You've seen course descriptions at all kinds of schools. I mean, we can study everything now, from Kanye West's body of work to anything we want. And then you see some of these contemplative studies, and you go, "Wow, it's pretty narrow. That's kind of esoteric." And it turns out it's not. It's about the entire university or learning experience.
Yeah. So it's very broad. And when we are paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally, we're in a way of being that really allows us to encounter huge bodies of knowledge and to figure out for us what it means. So whether you're in the humanities or the sciences or the arts, having an understanding of the contemplative modes of encounter is really valuable to the student. Now, it's also valuable because, and especially now, as we come back after the COVID situation, we're under a lot of stress, and so that contemplative space that we create for ourselves is also one that contributes to our wellness. If we're not in a constant state of fight or flight, our bodies work better and our minds work better, right? So we're helping with student wellness, we're helping with their academics. And the other thing that I wanted to sort of contribute was outreach to the community. And so we also offer programming that touches the community. For example, I know you have had Pat Croce on your
Pat,
show.
yes.
And so we have a longstanding relationship with Pat, who really helped to get this off the ground with us, and have had him come and speak, as well as a whole parade of people who come to talk about the possibilities of contemplative practice. So in the sciences, in history, in the humanities, we sort of try to bring something for everyone and invite the community in as well. And we also reach out to the community. We actually did a series of mindfulness courses for the borough of Westchester itself, including the mayor. So that was a really good time.
Well, I can't imagine any area of life that would need to be contemplative than government.
You would hope.
Yeah, you would hope. That before we get into the weeds on some of this stuff, this is not exactly the golden age of contemplation, is it? There, I guess there is I don't know, and you correct me, I'm babbling here. I guess there is the thoughtful or the contemplative mind, and then there's the reactive mind, which no matter what, as I understand it, no matter what information it perceives, it automatically defaults to what it already believes, without examining the information.
Yeah.
So this center and its dedication to these contemplative studies is really flying into the face of what seems to be the current mood in the world: this hard reaction and lack of thoughtfulness.
Well, I think in some sense that's been the history of humans in the world. It's hard reaction and lack of thoughtfulness. So really,
nothing new.
If you think about the Middle Ages and the wars and that kind of thing, even through the Renaissance, there was all that stuff going on, and at the same time there's this line of people who are contemplative. And in Europe in the Middle Ages, it's the monasteries, and they developed so far as to become universities, and here we are back around again. So the other thing that I would say is that there really is, I think, a greater expression of contemplation and meditation in the world today. It's more available than it was, say, 40 years ago, when
or in the Middle Ages.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had to go to the monastery, to get that, and now it's available in a lot of different venues. Certainly, there are apps and web pages and everything else that will inform you about these things. The question is now, which are the ones that are going to bring you the most value? So,
right, exactly.
And how's that
Exactly.
going to work? Yeah.
Well, so far it's resulted in terrific technological breakthroughs for ordering pizzas or a car to take you to the airport, but not much. But I guess there are other things. I'm a cynic. Anyway, it's interesting. Before we get into meditation and mindfulness, which I have a lot of questions about, tell me about your students. Now, do you have people who are majoring in contemplative studies?
So we have a minor in contemplative studies, and that's averaged about 50 students a year. So there is quite a bit of interest among the students in this. It's an interdisciplinary program, so they can take courses in music, in art, in social work, in actually kinesiology, sports. So we have yoga courses and Tai Chi courses, that kind of thing, as well as more directly meditative courses.
Yeah. I can imagine how helpful a minor in contemplative studies would be to somebody in the humanities, somebody in the music department, somebody you have to concentrate very closely, become a deep and thoughtful reader. So in the lit departments, I can see all that. And you mentioned something you didn't give me a lot of detail. I don't know whether it's even on point here for us. You mentioned one of your students having created a labyrinth as a project or something.
So one of the students in our honors college got very interested in walking meditation, and particularly the form of the labyrinth, which might look like a maze to you. I mean, that you can find, we're going back to the Middle Ages again, but in the cathedrals, they would have on the floors in tile these pathways that you follow, and they take you away from the goal and then back towards the goal. And so it was a way of doing that long walking meditation known as pilgrimage, but not having to leave town.
And
okay.
So the actual purpose of the maze was not to confuse and disorient,
right, but to lead you to the center. So one of the ways of practicing with the labyrinth is to have a question in your mind and walk towards the center, and when you get to the center, to be still and see if there's an answer. To see if something comes to you. So yeah, absolutely. So a student made a huge canvas labyrinth for us. It's I think 25 by 25 feet, and we can lay it out on the floor inside the center, or we can take it outside, which is something that we're going to be doing throughout the fall, actually, to make it available in the middle of campus. Just come, take a contemplative walk, be quiet, follow the pathway. You won't get lost. It's not a maze.
You have the perfect voice for this kind of work. Professor Donald McCown is our guest. He is the director of the Center for Contemplative Studies at Westchester University. So let's talk about meditation, and then we'll get to mindfulness, because I know they're not the same thing, but they're together in a sense. How far back can we trace the practice of meditation?
Well, it is lost in the mists of time, pretty much in every tradition. Paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally is sort of the definition that we use for mindfulness. So you could start to look at analogs for that, such as hunting. I need to be very present. I need to be open to anything that is happening in my environment, and I need to be able to accept what's happening with me and be able to be still in order to do that. So how far back in the history of humankind does that happen?
Yeah, you don't mean hunting. You don't mean hunting in the sense of going to Cabela's and buying a jacket.
No.
You're talking about trying to survive thousands and thousands of years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you look at the paintings of the animals and the hunters with spears in the caves in Chauvet, say in France. Those people were exactly like us. Their minds, I'm sure, did the same things. They went to catastrophes, as John Kabat-Zinn of the mindfulness sort of movement would say. How did they control that? How did they work with that? And how were they able to be still and wait for the animal?
Well, tell it.
That's a contemplative, meditative, mindful way of being. So it goes all the way back there. I mean, as far as the written record is concerned, we would look, into the literature in Greater India. And so we can go back 4,000 plus years. We look in Greater China. We can do the same thing. We look in our own, in the West. And in America, from sort of the founding of the United States, we see an understanding of these things.
You've written a book on that subject, correct?
I did. I wrote a book with a colleague of mine, Dr. Mark McCown.
Hold that book up, Doc. Hold the book up.
There you go. Okay.
There
it is called New World Mindfulness.
Okay.
Right? From the founding fathers, Emerson and Thoreau, to your personal practice. So the book grounds you in what is mindfulness, what is meditation, and then gives you ways of practicing that are informal. Because not everyone wants to say, okay, I'm going to have this discipline where I sit for 45 minutes or a half an hour a day in meditation. But how do we bring it into our lives? This was really the live question for everyone in our history.
All right. I have a question about why it seems for most people that these disciplines, mindfulness and meditation, arrive from the East to the West. If it's true, and it seems obvious, as you say, it's an innate biological evolutionary trait that we had to survive. Why was it lost? Was it lost in the West and we rediscovered it by accident in the East? I don't understand why that would have happened.
So as I was suggesting, it is innate. I mean, these are, but it's been played out differently and given different
status,
emphases.
Yeah.
In other cultures. And so I think that in our own encounters with those Eastern cultures, we were shocked by how much of that is there and the depth of impact on the cultures.
Yes.
Right. So even if we don't go back very far, if we don't take it back to John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, but we just look at what happened after World War II in Japan, right? The American occupation of Japan. The people who were left in Japan, the Americans, were really the cream of the crop. A lot of them were professionals, there were physicians, there were psychiatrists, which is where I'm going to go with this in a minute, who were left, and they wanted to understand what this culture was about, how it worked. So, the artists encountered Zen Buddhism, Zen meditation, and it opened up a new realm for them to think in different ways and to encounter nature in different ways, even in these kinds of stark contemplative practices, and so.
Well, I have to interrupt you because it's striking to me, and you tell me if I'm missing the point here. The Western mind seems to, at least for this, the near future, have been motivated towards action. The only reason you had a mind, the only reason you could actually think, was to accomplish something, to do something.
Yes.
And in the West, they said, well, in the East, it was, well, we want to accomplish things as well, but we think stopping and being quiet is another way to get there.
Yeah,
is that
absolutely. And being able to not know something for a while.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key to so many of our great scientists in the West, was they were able to just be with the problem. Sit with it, take it in.
That's a great point of being okay with not knowing something. Can we swing into, people go, okay, I understand meditation. It's very good. You go in a room, there's a candle, it's quiet. You slow everything down. Mindfulness, be in the moment. What are the practical really nuts and bolts of, what are the practical applications for something like mindfulness or meditation?
So you plucked just the appropriate moment for that, because it is this sense of being able to not know, being able to sit in the middle of our own discomfort. So if we look then at the applications of, say, mindfulness practice in mental health, one of the huge threads through kind of all of the things that we diagnose people with is that they can't be with their own experience in that moment. And so they find different ways of running away from it. And so if we want to talk about recovery, the recovery is learning to be in your life, however it is, right? In some sense, to be able to withstand the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, right? To quote Hamlet,
right. Right.
To be able to do that without running away. How do you do that? So what the mindfulness practices and the meditative practices do for us is they back off our reactivity. And we can talk about that in the brain and what happens. We can talk about how the body feels, which of course those things are linked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you're sitting in a relaxed way and your body is relaxed, you feel more space around you. You can let things in that you might not let in otherwise, or that you might be reactive to and just lash out, right? So this is the basic skill that we're teaching when we apply these practices.
You mentioned bringing the techniques that you talk about into the community. This is not just a ivy tower discussion that goes on a campus. So then it begs the question: are these disciplines, are these practices available to everyone, or are they the ultimately available to people of more means who have the time to pause? Can everybody benefit from this?
So yeah, that's a really wonderful question, and the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as we look at it in terms of the contemplative tradition rather than specific ways of manifesting that, specific techniques and practices. So we could do something as simple as stop, check into how we are, settle down, and then take a look at where we want to go and what we want to do. So what I'd like to do right now is to do a very short practice with everybody.
Great.
Okay. So this is a practice called the soles of the feet. It was developed by a friend of mine, Nirb Singh, for working with people who were very reactive and helping them to make better choices. Okay. So this is how it works, and you can do it along with me. And you could close your eyes if you'd like, because sometimes that helps you get in touch with what's happening in your body more. Or you can leave your eyes open, and that's fine too, because you can do this anywhere at any time. So we're just going to check into how it feels in the body right now. Maybe any sense of tightness in the muscles in places, or any sense of softness in the muscles in places. Maybe you notice your breathing as fast or slow, as deep or shallow. It doesn't matter how it is. We're just coming in contact with how it is. Everything is fine. It's just, this is how it is right now. You could take a look in your mind, in the thought space, where the thoughts come and go. And what is the weather like in there? So not what are you thinking about, but how fast are the thoughts moving? How slowly are they moving? Is it a traffic jam? Is it just one car sort of whooshing through? Just noticing what it's like. Again, just to know, because there's no better or worse way for our minds to be. And then what's the emotion in this moment for you? Maybe there's a mood state. Maybe there's an emotion that just showed up. And so now that you know what's going on with you, bringing all of your attention to the soles of your feet. Feeling them, maybe they're in shoes and they're touching the insoles. Maybe your feet are on the floor and there's the pressure of gravity and the weight of your legs bearing down. However it is, you can feel your heels. You can feel the insides of your arches. You can feel the balls of your feet, and maybe even inside all those bones that make up the balls of the feet. And then the toes, which you could even wiggle a little bit just to feel the difference between each toe. Get in touch with the individuals. And then feeling the whole of the soles of your feet, the sides of your feet, the tops of your feet. Maybe there's pressure on the sides and the top. Maybe there's air. Maybe you're barefoot. And then checking in to how it is in your body. Softness in the muscles, tightness in the muscles. How your breathing is, perhaps. Looking at the thoughts, the thought space and the weather there. What's it like in this present moment for you? And then is there an emotion that's here? And just knowing what that is. And so now you've done a check-in. You know how you are. And so you could already have your eyes open. You could open them. And so how is it with you right now, Steve?
Well, it's a very calming and soothing experience. I was immediately reminded when we got to our feet of something I heard a while back, and that is when we think about our consciousness, where our thoughts come from, we automatically associate it, as we should, with our head, our forehead, and so that's where the center of consciousness is. And I guess this is my hippie background. There was a moment when they were saying to us, You can shift that focus anywhere you want. You can have all of your focus, in this case, in the sole of your feet. And I thought, well, that's silly, but you can. I mean, you can actually do that. You can actually do it.
The mind is entirely embodied. Yes. Yeah. And that's one of the keys to these practices.
The other thing I'm struck by is that it is accessible, doesn't cost you anything, and even if you're operating heavy machinery, if you pause for a moment when you do that, you're only talking about a minute or a minute and a half to kind of, as the great philosopher Kenny Rogers once said, find out what condition your condition is in.
Yes, wonderful. I like that line myself.
Dr. Donald McCown of the Center for Contemplative Studies at Westchester University, thanks so much. I mean, that was terrific. That was exactly what we'd hoped we'd find with you. And we got to thank our buddy Pat Croce for putting us together.
Yes, indeed.
Great friend and a great resource. People can either enroll at Westchester and check out the center, or they can just go to the website and look around, right?
Right. So the shortcut is to just go to wcupa.edu, which is our homepage for the university. If you type a / and the letters CS, it will take you directly to the Center for Contemplative Studies. We have a number of pages. There are actually recordings of meditations that you can do. So absolutely free for the entire community. And you will see our programming. Well, you'll see it in about a week, our programming for the next year.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Don. I really appreciate it. And I hope we can circle back on some of these issues later on.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. That's for sure. Okay, indeed. I enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for your time. Thank you all for hanging on the Behavioral Corner. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. And every now and then, as the professor just said, slow down, take a breath, and check things out. We'll be back next time. Bye-bye.
At Retreat Behavioral Health, we believe in the power of connection and quality care. We offer comprehensive, holistic, and compassionate treatment from industry-leading experts. Call 855-802-6600 and begin your journey today.
That's it for now. And make us a habit, hanging out at the Behavioral Corner. And when we're not hanging, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on the Behavioral Corner.